Thank you very much for this question. The state of health of Schengen is pretty good. We have called for a lifting of all the restrictions at borders by the 15th of June in the first instance, and the vast majority of member states have lifted restrictions by that point. Still, some residual restrictions do remain, so if you will, you can qualify the state of health of Schengen as having a little cough. But we are working very closely with member states on these residual restrictions, and I think we can be quite satisfied with the fact that thanks to the very strong coordination efforts that the Commission has put in place, we have now. We're now in a very different situation compared to the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, and the vast majority of restrictions are now lifted. For very specific information as to where restrictions are still in place, I would invite you to have a look at our website, Reopen EU, which has all the up-to-date information that we get. Thank you.
Thank you, Adalbert. I didn't know you were a doctor now, but indeed the European Commission stands at the side of the patients and tries to help them. In this case, Schengen, it was indeed a lot of work, but I think we've made excellent progress. Tommaso, do you have a question as well for Adalbert?
Yes. Apologies, it's just a curiosity. I already asked this question also to the Council, but they didn't respond, so I'm trying with you. It's just to understand the reason why Taiwan was not in the list of the third countries with which the travel restrictions were lifted on 1st July. Because I know the EU follows the one China policy, but Taiwan had just 7 deaths since the beginning of the pandemic, which is quite remarkable, I think. Thank you.
Okay, question for Adalbert, I believe. Indeed.
I can address at least the aspect of the question that concerns specifically the travel restriction not getting into kind of the foreign affairs angles of that. But what I can say is that the approach that the Commission has proposed to lifting the travel restriction is a gradual approach, and we proposed to agree on a list of countries which is based on objective criteria, primarily related to the health situation. But while the criteria are objective, applying them is not a purely mechanical exercise, and this exercise involves some qualitative judgments. And exercising this judgment is the responsibility of the Council. Now, maybe what I can also recall is that the list is definitely not something that's set in stone. It is meant to be revised frequently, and indeed the Council emphasizes in the recommendation that it would revise it at least every 2 weeks, taking into account also, of course, the evolution of the health situation. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that not being on the list doesn't mean an outright travel ban for the residents of the place concerned. The EU citizens, family members of EU citizens and of EU residents, and people with an essential reason to come to Europe continue to be allowed to travel.
Okay, thank you, Adalbert. 2 things. I think that on the reasons why countries were put or were not put on the list, I would really urge you to discuss this with the Council, since it was their decision, its decision rather, sorry, as Adalbert has just pointed out.